And so there was a guy driving down the road. He's got 20 penguins in his back seat. And of course, he gets pulled over by the OPP. That's what we have here. It might have been RCMP in your part of the neck of the woods, but here it's the OPP. And the guy says, you can't be driving around with 20 penguins in the back seat. You got to take those penguins to the zoo. He lets them off the hook. Off he goes. The guy says, yes, of course, officer, and drives off. The next day, the cop pulls the same man over again and finds that he's once more driving around with 20 penguins in the back of his car. And the police officer says, hey, buddy, I thought I told you yesterday to take those penguins back to the zoo. And the guy says, I did, officer, and today I'm taking them to the movies. We've been on a wild ride. Who knows what the next hour will bring, but it's been awesome to host you here in the Bay of Quinte and with All Native Circle, and it's been a great honor for me as president of Bay of Quinte to have you here today. It's been an awesome journey and ride, and blessings for the rest of our time together.
All right, friends, we have a very special presentation that is going to be made now. So I'm going to ask the Venerable John Geshimu and Maggie Dieter and whoever else is part of this, if there's others, to please come up now.
Going to hit from here or from here? It's okay. By this microphone.
Right here.
Here, Elder. Just come. You help me. There is a way I want it to be. Oh, okay, okay. Jim's birth is oh, like that. And you tie it here, such that it will not fall. Looking good. Looking good, Jim.
Shorter? He wants it not to touch the ground.
Oh, not to touch the ground? You can turn it around. Yeah, like this.
There we go. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Here, such that it will not fall. Bwana asifiwe. Can I hear you say amen? Amen. Bwana asifiwe is praise the Lord. Amen. In Kiswahili. I am presenting the group here, All Native Circle, with this rubega. Rubega is a Maasai kikoi, all shuka, and it is tied to the elder
to show that he is the custodian of the wisdom of the community. So it is given for honor. It is given to show that the person wearing it on behalf of the community is the custodian of the wisdom of the community. Then there is this pass, which I'll also give to him, which represents the storage of the custodian, the history, the teachings, and the practices of the community. And there is this amulet, which is given also to an elder on behalf of the community. Thank you. This has been brought by Organization of African Institutes and Churches to the All Nations Circle, All Native Circle, sorry. Together with the other one, I also give them another gift. Definitely, where they can be, you know, a reference to many people who come. But it's also good to take an elder a picture with it. Yeah.
Do you want to say a word on behalf of Aboriginal Ministries Council?
Simgiget han sigirmanak. Amakan sta ulitkum ala masatun tegen amalhagi. Tanar daos. Ldoget. Tibnidi dan duam. Itralies ulaies. Luatlahagi. Today is beyond my imagination. That we receive the gifts as we did just now. As First Nations in this great country of ours, as First Nations in the United Church of Canada, I want to say thank you. I'm honored to receive this from my friend. Thank you so much, and may God bless you and guide you. Doorsen. Doorsen.
All right. We're going to continue with our decision-making session. So if you would turn in your workbooks to the identity and vision theme. Uh-oh. I hear whispering. Did you need me? A pair of glasses. It's all good. Identity and vision. We are looking at BC3, leading on purpose. So you said you wanted to work with the wording on this one before you were ready to vote. So we're going to get the wording up there. And so the suggested way forward was that the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal BC03. What I'm going to ask is that we have a mover and seconder for it, so we got it on the floor. Then we're going to work with it. So, because you did say that the facilitation group heard you. You felt heard, you felt that they captured the spirit of your discussions, but the wording wasn't quite right. So we're going to fix that wording. in our parliamentary procedure. So microphone 2.
Meade Baldwin, Montreal Ottawa Conference, moving.
And I need a seconder. Microphone 1.
Elaine Kellogg, Bay of Quinte.
And can you make sure that your name gets to the tech team, please? Elaine? All right, so we have the motion on the floor that the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal BC03, leading on purpose. So now I would like to hear discussion on if this is not the wording that you want for how we move forward, what is the wording that you would like us to move forward with? Microphone 1.
Jim McKibben, Toronto Conference. Moderator, seek your advice. Is it possible for me to move that we have an immediate vote on this?
No, I don't think so, because that was the original vote that we already voted no, that we go immediately to a vote. If nobody comes to the microphone, but friends, you've just had a break. I know you need, so if nobody comes to the microphone with alternative wording, we will. But I want to give people time to wrap their heads around it and to get to the mic and to make space for the folks who take a little longer or maybe are less familiar with being at the mic to get there. So microphone 3.
Jean McDonald, BC Conference. I understand that there will be, that the new denominational council executive will be spending some time in the fall defining their new model of governance and how they wish to operate. Therefore, I would like to see these materials forwarded specifically to the new denominational council executive for their consideration. So the wording, I think, would be that the 43rd General Council take no further action other than to refer the notes to the denominational council executive for their consideration. Do I have a seconder?
Okay, so we would like the amendment in writing, but I think Alan probably has the wording of that for us.
Thank you, Moderator. It's just more a piece of information. The closing motion, which we'll be doing at the end, will be referring all of the discussion group notes and all of the facilitation reports to the executive, so they will have all of that information as well. So we will be doing that. If you'd like to include it in here as well, that's your choice, but we will already be referring all of that in the closing motions we'll bring at the end of the time.
Thank you. That's a helpful clarification. So, Jean, did you still want to continue with that amendment? And if so, can we get the actual wording on that? I'm just, microphone 3.
I would, but I have no seconder. So if someone would like to second it,
then
we could proceed.
All right, then. So, seconder, microphone 3?
Sure. Judith Evenden, Bay Quitting Conference.
All right. So we have an amendment that's moved and seconded. Are you speaking?
I think we need some clarity because, in essence, we're going to leave this General Council with 2 General Council executives, the executive for the past General Council, who will still be in office till the end of December, and a new General Council executive who are going to find their legs and come into that role in January. So are they both getting all of these notes?
That's very helpful. And so the wording of this amendment is that the notes from the discussion on this proposal would be forwarded to the new denominational executive, denominational council executive. That's the new one. And that the General Council would take no further action on. Yeah, we actually get to call that General Council Executive. But the new General Council Executive, General Council 43 Executive. So this is the amendment that is before us. Is there any other discussion on that amendment? Or are you?
It's not right. Question.
I'm hearing a call for the question. I don't see anybody at microphones. So then I will ask you to get your clickers ready. And this is just on the amendment. If you are in favor of including the words of the amendment in the motion, then click 1. If you're opposed, click 2. Please vote now. Yes, and that is carried. So the motion as amended reads that the 43rd General Council forward the notes from the discussion and facilitation group to the new denominational executive and take no further action on proposal BC03. Is there any discussion on the motion as amended? And if I don't see folks at the microphone, I'm going to give you time to get there, but if you're ready to vote, stay seated, and I will take that as meaning that you're ready to vote. So get your clickers out. You have the amended motion now that you are voting on. In favor is 1, opposed is 2. Please vote now. And that is carried with 96% in favor. All right, we are moving on to TICIF/GCE17 report on membership. It's TICIF 1 GCE17 report on membership. And the suggested way forward that you wanted to massage is up on the screen there. If we can have a mover and seconder for that, then we can get the wording right. Microphone 1.
No, I'm wanting to move an amendment. I'll wait.
Okay, so we need it moved and seconded for microphone 1.
Moved, Lorraine Mackenzie Shepherd, Manitoba Northwest Ontario Conference. I so move.
And microphone 1.
Seconded, Matthew Lindsay, London Conference.
All right, now we have the motion on the floor, and I am hearing we have an amendment.
Yes, at a time, David Leighton Brown from Toronto Conference. At a time when we are grappling with 2 different models of membership, it seems inappropriate to conduct an educational campaign which could be interpreted as advocating one of those 2 models, or at least reinforcing that model in the minds of our membership at large. And so, in order to advance study without biasing that study, I would move that we delete clause 2 from this motion.
Okay, so, again, we need your name. You've moved it. I need a seconder for that. Microphone 2.
Moderator Bill Stedman, Manitou Conference. I'll second that.
Okay. So the amendment that is proposed is that clause 2 would be deleted from the motion, and the motion would read that the 43rd General Council forward all notes from the discussion groups at GC43 to the Theology Interchurch Interfaith Committee to facilitate their further work on the issue of membership. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Microphone 1.
Tim Bowman, BC Conference. Moderator, my understanding from the facilitator's report was that most of the groups were in fact in favor of Model 1. And so my assumption is that that most of the groups were in favor of one model in particular, and therefore I assume that any perceived biasing is in fact intentional.
Sorry, I see somebody from the facilitation group standing up, but reading the notes from the facilitation group is that in some discussion groups there was preference for one model, but in other discussion groups there was preference for the other. There was no overall preference for one or the other.
I'd be happy to hear from the facilitation group.
Facilitation group?
Thank you, moderator. Our experience of reading the discussion notes was that they almost entirely replicated the study that had gone to the congregations. And I believe all but one of the discussion groups were divided. So there was only one discussion group that came to consensus on Model 2.
Thank you. Yep. Carmen will stay up here in case there's any more questions for the facilitation group, but microphone 3, we're still talking about the amendment.
Yes. Selena Mullen, Montreal, Ottawa Conference. I speak against the amendment. I believe that educating our members in our church, be they full or not, is an act of justice and equity, that they can then make an informed decision about how they feel that we should move forward, and hopefully that will inform us moving on.
Thank you. Any other discussion of the amendment? Microphone 1.
Ingrid Brown, BC Conference. I also will speak against the motion in a similar vein. I think that the notes of the facilitation group reflected a lack of education around the membership model at the congregational level, and so before moving on anything, I would hope that we could get the word out, so to speak, and so I would speak against the amendment.
Thank you. And microphone 3.
Moderator Bill Stedman, Manitou Conference. As one who seconded the amendment, I just want to be clear, the intent as I see it is not to stifle discussion or education, but the Theology Interchurch Interfaith Committee is to pursue this matter further with our denomination because we're not clear on direction. I think if we're going to do study in a wide variety of ways, it's prejudiced by doing number 2, as some have suggested, because we're confusing the church. A, we're looking at a particular model and in-depth study of it. B, we're looking at the whole issue of membership in a broader context. And I think we need that broader context study before we then implement something that we share with the wider church.
Okay, thank you. And microphone 1.
Catherine MacDonald, Maritime Conference. I would speak in support of the amendment. For many of the reasons that Bill Stedman just named, we don't need the General Secretary to implement an education plan for us in our own congregations' pastoral charges to help our membership. Thank you.
Seeing nobody else at the mics, are you ready for the question on the amendment? All right, so friends, we're only voting on the amendment, and the amendment that is to remove Article 2 up there from the motion. So the entire motion would simply read that the 43rd General Council forward all notes from the discussion groups at GC43 to the Theology Interchurch Interfaith Committee to facilitate their further work on the issue of membership, period. If you are in favor of that change, click 1. If you are opposed, click 2. Please vote now. The amendment is carried, so now we're looking at the motion as amended, which is simply part 1 of the original motion. So the motion as you have it up there. Is there any further discussion, or? Yes, there is. Microphone 3.
Moderator, I guess it's more of a question. Sorry, Blair Patterson, Montreal, Ottawa Conference. In looking at the remit implementation work, 7.4.2 states, and I don't know where this corresponds to the current manual, in terms of membership requirements. No terms of admission to full membership may be prescribed other than those laid down in the New Testament. And I'm curious as to how this is going to inform or be a part of what the Theology, Interchurch, Interfaith Committee is tasked to do. And is this going to be a hindrance to the work that they do?
Can we have the General Secretary's microphone, please?
Just to say that the work that's been referred to in this proposal is part of an ongoing study that's been going on for some time, and it will reflect and respect all other documents of the church.
Sorry, microphone 3, please.
Just to respond to that, but because this will be in the basis of union, and so I'm curious as to how that will relate.
What you see in the other proposal, which we're not discussing here, isn't changing that particular element of the basis of union, and we already have provisions in the manual that govern membership, and that's what we're here talking about.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. So you have the amended motion in front of you. I'm seeing nobody moving towards a microphone, so I'm going to call the question. If you are in favor of this motion, please click 1. If you are opposed, click 2. Please vote now. And that is carried by a 93% vote in favor. All right, we're going to turn now to small and rural ministry theme group. And we just have one proposal that we still need to deal with under this theme, and it's MNW01, Rural Prairie Marginalization. So MNW01. The suggestion from the facilitation group was that the 43rd General Council take no further action on this proposal. And you thought they captured in their notes the spirit of your discussion, but that this wording of the proposal didn't quite hit the mark. So I would invite a mover and seconder so that we can then discuss it and find the wording that is going to work for us. And Blair, you go ahead and microphone 3, and then I'm going to invite other folks who are, yeah, I know, to move it.
I move it.
Yeah,
moderator.
thank you. And Max, are you?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Max Martin and Blair Patterson in the other order. Do you want to say that? Can you understand what you just... Carmen has some input for us on this one.
Just a reminder that when this proposal, or when the discussion notes and this suggested way forward were presented by the facilitation team, we had not yet dealt with the Administration of Sacraments proposal, and we had told you there's another proposal later that's going to come that will include dealing with this, and if you'll remember, that suggested way forward that you approved would include bringing all of this conversation into that suggestion that the General Secretary come up with a strategy and plan for meeting the ministry needs of having all communities of faith have access to the sacraments, and so this would become part of that conversation. So I don't know if that clarifies things for people, but that may have shifted.
Did we approve that other one? Okay, and Carmen is reminding me that we approved the other one under administration of sacraments, which incorporates communicating all of these notes forward for that implementation. So, discussion on the motion. Blair, microphone 3.
Madam Moderator, as the mover of the motion, I'd like to consider General 42 A&W 6, the Rural Ministry of the United Church of Canada, which has not been implemented, and it won't be in any of your workbooks because it was from General Council 42. But what Bake Apple Commission enacted was that the 42nd General Council would, 1, recognize the challenges of rural and or remote ministry in the United Church of Canada, and 2, direct the General Secretary and General Council to create a process to consider and to make recommendations about the future mission and ministry of rural and or remote ministry in the United Church. Seeing that this at this point has not been done, I would make an amendment, or because I've moved it, add that the recommendations of ANW 6 from General Council 42 be implemented.
Okay. Do you have a seconder for that amendment?
Gail Goen, Alberta Northwest Conference.
All right. So we have an amendment to the motion in front of us, which is to add. Do you have the wording of that?
I certainly do.
Can you take that over? Or okay, is it better if he reads it to you, or read it out loud in the microphone again slowly so the tech team can type it in?
Certainly.
So read us what the whole motion as amended would sound like, okay, please.
That the 43rd General Council would recognize the challenges of rural and or remote ministry in the United Church of Canada, and
Hold on.
Sorry.
The challenges of
rural
and remote.
And or remote, that was how it was passed.
And or remote.
Ministry of the United Church of Canada. And number 2, direct the General Secretary to create a process to consider and make recommendations about the future mission and ministry of rural and or remote ministry of the United Church of Canada.
Are you just reiterating what?
Because it has not been enacted, even though it had been passed by General Council 42.
Yeah, I'm not. We need to have a little confab up here.
Okay, I'll get this too.
Thank you. Blair, what we originally heard you said, which we're actually thinking might be more in order than simply restating something that has technically already been passed. I believe you originally said something like that the General Council 43 We need General Secretary's mic, please.
Would direct the General Secretary to implement ANW 6 from GC42 and take no further action on MNW 1?
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, the actual wording of the amendment that is being proposed is that the General Council, the 43rd General Council, would direct the General Secretary to implement ANW 6 from GC42 and take no further action on proposal MNW 01, Rural Prairie Marginalization. Point of order, Mike.
Moderator Catherine Stewart, Maritime Conference. For the point of order, I didn't realize that somebody could amend their own motion.
Well, I'm allowing it in this case because I did ask that it be moved so that it could get onto the floor for discussion. And the whole court has already said we want it amended. We might be bending the rules, but I don't think we're breaking them, are we? Maybe Paul will let us know if we're breaking them. Paul?
Paul Reed, Bay of Quinte Conference. I would find it very problematic for us to make reference to a proposal of a previous General Counsel that is not available to us to know the wording. If, in fact, what was read in as an amendment was the wording from that, I think it would be far more helpful for us to know what wording we're looking at.
Point of order, Mike?
If it would make members of the court more at ease, I would offer to move the amendment. Christiana Black, Bay of Quinte.
Okay. So thank you very much for that, Christiana. And friends, Business Table is requesting that we put this one just aside, and they're going to work with this, and it might be helpful, Blair, if you headed on over there, and we'll come back to this one with a suggestion for a way forward. And in the meantime, oh, excellent. In the meantime, we are going to hear from our intercultural observers. So if they're ready. It was my plan when we were done this one to hear from the intercultural observers, but this might be a nice break to give the please. Yes, yes, I know, thank you. Yes. This a good time for you? Fantastic. So Paul Wallfall, one of our intercultural observers, is going to share some reflections with us. Thank you, Paul.
Friends, it has been said that if you really want to move something at a council meeting or a conference meeting for it to pass, do it at the close of the council. Everybody is tired, and everybody will pass anything that you propose. Moderator, General Secretary, first let me thank you for the opportunity given to me to serve in this capacity of intercultural observer at this General Council. I've been deeply moved by the privilege that had been afforded me. It is my hope that I have done in some way, even some small way, justice to the post. For my reflection, I want to share with you 3 stories from my experiences in the United Church of Canada. These stories have in many ways shaped and challenged my outlook in the church and the experiences, therefore, of this past week. The first occurred a few years ago at a seminar on pastoral relations in Alberta, where we're in small groups looking at a case study and the issue of race was involved. One of my colleagues, my white colleagues, said to me, "You know, when I see you, Paul, I don't see your skin color. I just see a person." And to be clear, my colleague honestly thought he was paying me a compliment. However, in my response, I had to say to him, "If what you say is true, then you have rendered me invisible. Invisible because you are not seeing who I am." I must confess that for most of the past week at General Council, I struggled with the feeling of being invisible. Invisible because in so many ways, I was not seeing myself, the experiences of my culture, and people like myself, people who live in black or brown skins, reflected in the corporate things we did in the council. It was almost as though we did not exist. Worship was good, and yet I was not seeing myself reflected in the worship. I longed to hear the songs from the Caribbean, or from Africa, or from African American roots. I felt invisible because to date, I have not heard in the council an acknowledgement that racism exists in our church, and that the experiences of racism felt by every black person within the United Church of Canada is real. Of the many proposals that have come before the 43rd General Council, I noted that only 2 address the issue of racism directly. And possibly we need to continue to attend to the issues of racism more in our discussions. Let us not forget, my friends, that the ills that we are to confront are not only outside of the church, it is also inside the church. There's been no call at this General Council for the church to acknowledge the reality of racism within it. There's been no challenge to the church to confront racism within it. There's been no urging of the church to transform or change from actions and attitudes which display white privilege, white entitlement, and racism. Transformation to become what the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. described as a beloved community. Acknowledge, confront, transform. ACT, act. We must act as a church to end racism. Part of my problem may well be that you have not stopped to listen to our story. Had you dialogued with us about our experiences and taken seriously when we speak of the pain we have experienced as people who inhabit black or brown skins, you would have heard much. If you had listened, you would have heard the stories of the experience of the black minister who was told by his ministry and personnel committee that if he should stop speaking up and take whatever the church gives him because it was out of pity that they took him from his poor country to be in Canada. You would have heard the story of the female minister, black female minister, who had the experience of members not shaking her hand at the end of worship service because they did not want a black minister as their minister, black person as their minister. You would have heard the story of the black female minister told by a search committee that they did not want to hire her because the congregation was not ready for a female minister, but that same search committee, less than a month later, recommended a white female minister to the congregation. You would have heard the story of the black male minister who was called black boy who needs to be put in his place by members of a congregation. And there are many other stories I could add. The reality is, my friends, that my ancestors were taken from Africa and enslaved in the Caribbean and in North and South America. Their culture was stripped from them. They were dehumanized and made to feel that everything about them was wrong. Slavery existed here in Canada, yes, here in Canada, for at least 200 years, and finally came to an end on the 1st of August, 1838. And while Canada hails itself as being the last stop of the Underground Railroad for the enslaved fleeing from the USA, the principle and the reality of prejudice, systemic racism, continues to be a feature of Canadian society even today. Next Wednesday, it will be the 180th anniversary of the complete ending of slavery in the former British Empire. It's an anniversary for us all. Let us not forget it. So I struggle with this feeling of being invisible, even while I do my best, and my colleagues and I do of our best to serve this church with passion and integrity. The second story occurred in May 2015, and at that time I stood before the Alberta Northwest Conference as a candidate for the post of conference president. And the first thing I said in my speech was, "Surprise, I'm a black man." The conference erupted in laughter, and yet today I do not think they fully understood what I was saying. In many ways, I'm a member of a minority within a minority within a minority. I'm a black man from the Caribbean who is a recent immigrant to this country. Someone said to me that by describing myself that way, I'm saying that I'm microscopic. I wonder how anybody could say that. And possibly I am. But what I do know is that the view from where I stand is different because my experiences are shaped differently. I look upon the church and honestly, I look forward to January 1, not with fear and dread, because I do not have the experience of presbyteries and conferences past and all the joys of that. My experience is but 5 years old. I look upon the church and honestly I don't see where you have come from because I was not there with you in the past. Instead, what I see is a church now and a church of what it can be. I see the things that are done which suggest, honestly, a wasting of time. And I also see the things that could be done differently. I see possibility, and honestly, my friends, even this past week, I see hope. Yet, all that and all who are like me are seeking to do is to offer to the church this gift of looking through a different lens upon the church. My third experience occurred at our conference executive meeting last October, and our conference president, Dr. Kathy Yamashita, a woman of Japanese descent, reminded us that we should take note of who is missing from the table. Someone then reminded us that we are an intercultural church here in Canada, and therefore there is no pressing need for us to look at that issue any longer. But you know, friends, I've been reflecting on that question. Who is missing from the table? For in many ways, I now wonder if that is the real question we should be asking. I'm now very conscious that simply being at the table may be good, but it is not all that we want to crank it up to be. The real issue seems to be, who are you at the table? You see, if I'm at your table as your guest, then whatever you put before me, I have to take. I would hope that somehow you would have remembered my dietary needs, but you really don't have to. I'm simply there as your guest. If I'm at your table because you've taken pity on me, because somehow you believe that I need to be fed a little more, then even more so, I have to take whatever I get. And if you put me at the children's table, then while you can say I'm a member of the family, again, I have no right to speak. I have no right for my needs to be met. I have no way of influencing the menu. But if you have me there as an adult and a responsible member of the family, then I have the right to participate not only in the eating of the meal, I would then have the right to participate in the creation of the menu and the participation in the creation of the meal itself. The issue for me is no longer who is missing from the table. It is more about what is my place at the table. If you have accepted me there simply to tell me what I must accept and take what I get, then simply being at the table is not all that we have made it out to be. So what am I doing at the table? I must confess that the discussions and the movement between representation or having an intercultural reality at the denominational council executive hit me hard, because I wondered then, what really am I doing at that table? The answer to that question, my friends, comes out in dialogue. When we take seriously each person's experience and treat each person with dignity, respect, and love, then we have an answer to the question, what are you doing at the table? The answer comes and enables us to make each person visible. Visible not by sight, but by respecting them and acknowledging that they are there. And these are people who have inherent rights and dignity like all of us require. It comes when each person's unique perspective is valued. It is then that we'll be an intercultural community. It is then that we'll be a church that God wants us to be. So I ask you, in closing, how do you cook chicken? Seriously, how do you cook chicken? I asked this question to St. Paul United Church in Edmonton. You see, when I cook chicken, it's a process. The onion, the garlic, the thyme, the black pepper, the pimento, a little bit of ginger, and some soy sauce. And all of that is done overnight, for I have to have my chicken marinating overnight before I can cook it. And if I'm doing jerk chicken, the mandatory jerk seasoning has to go in. The reality is that the chicken that I will cook will be different from the chicken you will cook. It will taste different. It may even look different. I'm not saying that the chicken I will cook is better than yours, and neither am I saying it is inferior to yours. I am just simply saying it is different. And I offer my chicken with yours. And I'm saying, let us share. For you know what? It is all good. So let's take my chicken and your chicken. Let's add the chicken from the indigenous people. Throw in a little from the Chinese people, a little from the Korean, a little from the East Indian, a little from all the cultures we have. Let us all put them on the plate, and let us ensure that the people who sit at the table of our church, even as we move into a new system, that they're there not as guests, but as valued members of the family. It is then that we truly can look through the intercultural lens and have clear vision, because we would have questioned our biases, we would have challenged our assumptions, we would have noted who is missing and know why they're there, if they're there, and value all the voices, and recognize that the only way we can know that a voice is missing is if we have dialogue with that voice. For you will never know that a voice is missing unless you have heard
that voice. And we aim for equity. And with a deep breath, we live out our commitments. Thank you.
BC5, are we, okay. All right, so thank you so much, Paul. Challenging words. And I hope that our applause means that we don't just like to hear them, but that we are receiving that challenge to live what we're being called to by them. Let us return now to our workbook, Small and Rural Ministry, MNW01, Rural Prairie Marginalization. And our business table has worked with the amendment, and what they are bringing forward is that the 43rd General Council direct the General Secretary to implement GC42 2015-48 and take no further action on proposal MNW01, Rural Prairie Marginalization. So that is the proposal. That is just the amendment that is being suggested. And that amendment is moved by K. Black and seconded by G. Goyne. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing nobody moving to a microphone, then I'm going to call the question on the amendment. So if you're in favor of this amendment, then please click 1. If you're opposed, click 2. Please vote now. And that amendment is carried with an 81% vote in favor. And so now we have before us the motion as amended. And so you have the wording there. We just heard it. Is there any further discussion on this motion, or are you ready to vote on it? Yep, I think you're ready. So get your clickers out. You are now voting on the motion. If you're in favor, it's 1, opposed is 2. Please vote now. And that is carried with a 92% majority. All right, thank you, friends. And that finishes off that theme. And we're moving on to the next theme, which is under ministry personnel. And our first proposal that we're dealing with under that theme is MNW006, appointments of congregational designated ministers. The suggested way forward that you liked, again, you thought that the facilitation team had heard you, had captured the spirit of your discussions. You just didn't quite resonate with the wording of this proposal. So we're going to move and second it, and then we're going to fix it. So microphone 1.
I move Linda Buchanan, Manitoba Northwestern Ontario Conference.
Do we have a seconder?
Tony Orlando Maritime Conference, second this.
Okay, thank you. So it's moved and seconded, that the 43rd General Council refer proposal MNW06, appointments of congregational designated ministers, to the executive of the denominational council. You wanted to massage that wording or change it or do something else there that reflected your discussions. If you have suggestions for how we could say this, that'd be great. Microphone 2.
Murray Spear, Alberta Northwest Conference. To get things moving, I will move that the motion be amended to say refer the first 2 paragraphs of the recommendations of proposal MNW6, thus leaving out the 3rd paragraph of the recommendations of the proposal. And I would need a seconder for that.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? And we need that wording to go to the business table so they can get that up there.
Apparently no seconder.
I'm not hearing a seconder for that, so
I'll second that motion. Mary Quirk, Maritime Conference.
Can you please get your name and spelling to the business table? So we're going to give our tech team a minute to get the actual wording of that up. And so in this moment while we're waiting, it might be helpful to just refresh your memories, to go back into your proposals, the proposal folder, and pull up that whole proposal, because the amendment is referencing paragraphs within that proposal, and it would be helpful if we were clear in our minds what those paragraphs are. Okay, so you have the wording of the amendment on the screen. The motion, if it were amended, would read that the 43rd General Council refer the first 2 suggestions in Section 3 of Proposal MNW06, appointments of congregational designated ministers, to the executive of the denominational council. So it's asking for the first 2 suggestions in Section 3 to be referred to the denominational council. So Section 3 is how might the church respond, and there are 3 paragraphs there, and they are asking us to refer the first 2 paragraphs to the executive. Is there any discussion on this amendment? And friends, I'm not worried about a little bit of space. Sometimes the people who are not as comfortable getting up at microphones need to see them empty for a bit before they get there. So if you're comfortable jumping up and you've done that a few times, please feel free to stay in your seat so that others who don't so easily jump up have a chance to do so. And I think we probably all need a little time to read it. Microphone 3.
Yes, Madam Moderator. I don't understand this, this amendment because a congregational designated minister is hired by the governing body or the pastoral charge. Why wouldn't it be accountable to it? Why would your employee not be accountable to its employee?
So you're asking
so that's a question
the
on the
mover
amendment.
to give some rationale for why they're leaving out paragraph 3? Linda? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, microphone 1?
I never moved that amendment, so I wanted to speak against it.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Murray who moved it. Are you answering it, or is Murray answering that? Me? Are you? Oh, okay. Pulpit mic. Murray should answer it.
Do you want Murray to answer it?
It's Murray's. That's fine. It's Murray's amendment, so, or he's the mover of the amendment. So if you can please give us the rationale for why you wanted that third paragraph not to be included in what got sent forward.
So my understanding is there may be some confusion about accountability versus supervision, and that the tasks of a congregational designated minister are accountable to the governing body of that congregation. However, the current polity is that CDMs are only in place when there is a called or appointed minister who then provides supervision. And so my interpretation was that we're talking about supervision, but that we've mixed up some of the language of supervision and accountability.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Does that help? Okay. Microphone 1?
Yes, I would, Linda Buchanan, Manitoba, Northwestern Ontario. I would just like to speak on behalf of small pastoral charges, and I'm speaking to the need to keep in the third suggestion to be having the full consideration of the options for the executive of the denominational council. Because there are situations, we already talked about them, with small and rural ministries where people are just too far away for supervision, or they're overworked, or they have 4 pastoral charges to be doing. And so I would just encourage people to vote against the amendment and to let the executive of the denominational council look at the full range of needs across this country.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? All right, then I think you're ready to vote on the amendment. So again, we're voting only on the amendment, which is to add in those words that would make it so only the first 2 paragraphs of the 3 paragraphs in the proposal would be referred on to the General Council Executive. If you're in favor of that amendment, please click 1. If you're opposed, click 2. Please vote now. And the amendment is defeated, so we have, with a 62% majority voting against, so we are back to the original wording of the motion, that the 43rd General Council refer proposal MNW06, appointments of congregational designated ministers, to the executive of the denominational council. Point of order, Mike.
Moderator Ross Bartlett, Maritime Conference. I'd like you to rule on whether or not the 3rd paragraph of the proposal is in fact in order, because it simply states what actually exists. And the whole it makes no reference whatsoever to supervision, which is the purpose of the first two. And so it will not change the polity or the process of the church, because the process of the church will still require that a congregational designated minister have a supervisor.
So I'm not going to rule that out of order, because all that is being asked for is that the proposal, including that paragraph, be referred to the executive. And the executive will take account of all of the polity and all of the rules that are in place and all of the rules that, in their discernment, need to be in place. And so it's not asking us to break our rules, it's simply referring the proposal in its entirety with all its various suggestions to the executive for the executive to consider. So it's not out of order to refer stuff for consideration. Thank you, Ross. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Well, but I've got somebody at a microphone. So microphone 1.
Marcy Gibson, Hamilton Conference. I'd like you to clarify for us if this is referred to the executive, the denominational council, where it will go from there. I have serious concerns with this proposal. If we block it being referred, does that mean that we are passing the proposal?
Okay, thank you. The General Secretary will respond.
If it is referred, there'll be a determination whether it's dealt with by the current executive between now and the end of the year or by the future executive.
And dealt with it, so this motion would not be approving it for implementation. That's a different thing. Referring it is basically saying this body did not make a decision on it, but we are referring it on to the executive to determine what response would be appropriate to have to the proposal. Oh, microphone 1.
Would it be possible to do even a straw poll vote to see if we would have passed it without the referring?
We don't know. We have this motion. So if you, one possibility is we could pass this and refer it on. Another possibility is we could defeat this motion and then we can entertain an alternative motion. Or, yeah, as part of new business, which would be referred to the executive. Just keeping in mind that new business will probably mostly get referred to the executive to be dealt with. Microphone 2.
John O'Sorin, Manitoba, Western Ontario. I would encourage the court to pass this. We need help on the prairies. There are 72 vacancies in Manitoba, Northwestern Ontario alone, plus what's going on. The stretch from Sault Ste. Marie to Thunder Bay has no ordered ministry whatsoever. We need all the help we can get. So I urge you to pass this so at least we can take a look at the resources available that we can use.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody at microphones. We've had a fulsome discussion. I'm going to call the question. If you are in favor of this motion, click 1. If you're opposed, click 2. Please vote now. And that motion is carried with 85% majority. Manitoba, Northwestern Ontario, 07, equal pay for designated lay ministers. Again, you felt heard by the facilitation team, but the wording that they were offering wasn't quite what you were comfortable with. So if we can move and second this, then we can sort out the wording. Microphone. Oh, sorry, point of order, Mike.
Actually, I rise on a point of personal privilege. Patty Rogers from Toronto Conference. When the facilitation team was speaking about this issue, in the facilitation notes, it was stated that designated lay ministers are not accountable to the Office of Vocation, when in fact they are accountable to the, or will be accountable to the Office of Vocation, as all ministry personnel in an appointment would be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Microphone 2.
Bill Sheaves, Bay of Quinte Conference. I'll move that motion.
Okay, and microphone 3.
Kyle Grant, Maritime Conference. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion that you, so it currently reads that the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal MNW 07, equal pay for designated lay ministers. Is there any wording you would like to suggest to improve this? Microphone 1.
Take no action. Okay. Wanda Stride, Bay of Quinte Conference. Yeah, okay, I think we'd like to propose an amendment to this. Over the course of my ministry and over this past week, it's become painfully evident that there are great divides between the ministry streams, and the 2012 document on basically the theology of ministry identified that we need to adapt our ministries. And there's a sense of equity issues, there's a sense of being diminished. So we would like to propose that we do take further action, that we refer this to the General Secretary, and now I've lost my wording, and ask the General Secretary to establish a program to encourage reconciliation of the broken relationships between the different streams of ministry.
Okay, I think that is sufficiently different from what this proposal is about, that it would be a separate proposal, because this one is focused on equal pay. Yeah. So that's not an unproposable thing. It just wouldn't amend this proposal. So if you would like to enter that as new business, a new proposal, that could go to the business table.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other suggested changes to this proposal as it stands? Point of order, Mike.
Carmen Lansdowne from the facilitation team. The facilitation team just discussed, and we actually did make other suggested ways forward that got at the heart of the issue that was trying to be dealt with by proposal, that were separate from the recommendations in the proposal, and we would take it as a friendly amendment to direct the General Secretary to do that consultation and programming.
Okay, thank you. So, so the facilitation team is actually welcoming Wanda's suggestion as a friendly amendment because it is consistent with other things that they were hearing from your discussion groups. So I'm trusting that the wording is getting worked out over at the table, and I believe you have a mover and a seconder for it. So we are going to perhaps, music team, is it out of line to ask you for a song? Perhaps a rousing song. One that makes us shake our bodies a little, or at least shake our minds. And while they're getting organized, we'll hear from the point of order, Mike.
Madam Moderator, I raise Daniel MacDonald, Bay of Quinte Conference. I raise not a point of order, but a point of personal privilege. On behalf of my friend here, who is so overwhelmed with emotion that I myself am becoming overwhelmed as well now. We have just received and have witnessed an incredible, powerful witness from our intercultural observer, Brother Paul, sharing lament and judgment on our denomination's treatment of racialized people within our midst and within our wider communities. And we then moved on immediately with our business with little more than a thank you or request for forgiveness or appropriate action in response. What is the role of our intercultural observers if we do not respond to their observations. I would therefore, on behalf of my friend, like to propose, and at the very least, commit, but I would go so far as to propose that this body, I would therefore like to, on behalf of my friend, first off, seek the forgiveness of our racialized siblings in Christ. And furthermore, would propose that this body commit from this day forward to transforming our business practices in response to the witness that has been offered. From this time forward, in our business meeting and beyond. So I would move that, and I think my friend would certainly second that. Penny Nelson, Maritime Conference.
Thank you. Thank you for faithfully listening, hearing, and calling us to account, calling me to account. I appreciate that. Perhaps not a rousing song. We have a proposal on the floor, and I recognize that in terms of process, the kind of process we're used to following, that this is outside of that process. And I think that is precisely the point. I think that in order for us to be the church we have been called to be, that we long to be, that this proposal is inviting, that our intercultural observers have invited us to be, we need to get used to doing things that are outside of our usual way of doing things. So we have a proposal that is moved and seconded, and the wording will be up there in just a moment, and I would recognize microphone 3 to comment. That's microphone 3 over there. Yeah, thank you. Microphone 3.
I really thank you for the proposal because since the morning today, I have been very troubled seeing how the business decision-making process could impact at least one racialized member, which is me, about how we deal with the, how we raise our voices heard and make this proposal to go forward. For example, when we deal with the proposal on racism and racial discrimination and white privilege, because we were so quick to move forward, and also because I didn't have time to read the facilitation team's full report on that proposal, I was not fully ready to what I would hear from the reports that facilitation team made, capturing the spirit of the discussion groups. In particular, there was the comment on some people felt that the reaction to the proposal, reaction to the title of the proposal made them feel defensive, like racism or white privilege. The terminology made them defensive from the outset, which is fine. We could honestly feel and respond to the what is going to be dealt with. But as a racialized member with particular experiences, when I read that comment, I was not ready to hear that comment. It was very triggering and troubling. But, you know, we changed the business process, and which I fully agreed to, and we had to, right? So the proposal and the motion, very good, but it reached over 90% of the favor to that proposal and motion. That means we just moved forward. It was referred to the General Secretary. We didn't have the important opportunity to have the dialogue on what was the implication, and also how each member had been actually responding to that proposal and motion. We just moved forward, and the feeling, the troubled feeling, I just had to deal with alone on the process. So I did take time to talk to the intercultural observers, which I am very thankful for. But we lost the opportunity to have the deeper dialogue because of how we move forward with the 90%, then no dialogue, just to go with the motion. So thank you.
Thank you. So friends, I know that they are working on projecting for us, and this is important because I heard an invitation to ask for forgiveness, a proposal that we ask for forgiveness, and that we actually transform our business practices and our procedures for the remainder of this meeting and from this point forward. Well, there you have it now. Friends, it would be easy for us to just vote on this. It might even be a challenge, but still tempting to debate it. But I would like to invite us into a time of prayerful reflection. And if perhaps some quiet music to enable us to prayerfully reflect. Or perhaps we'll just actually, I'm going to invite us into a time of silent, absolutely silent prayer. And the music will bring us out after. I love silence. I was going to say 5 minutes, but maybe that's pushing some folks. We'll have a good 3 minutes of silence, and then the musicians will bring us out of that time of silence.
Patient God, soothe the broad of fear, comfort us when we know you are near. We grow more certain our vision is clear. Patient God, calm our fear. Loving God, be our voice, be our prayer, reaching out, joining hands as we share. We seek your guidance, the friendship and care. Loving God, be our prayer. Spirit God, be our breath, be our song, blow through us, bringing strength to move on. Through change, the challenge will bring the new dawn. Spirit God, be our song.
I see two people at microphones. I want to invite us, I see three people at microphones. And why I'm pausing is I don't know if we agreed, but I invited us earlier in the meeting to be particularly attentive to making space for voices that we haven't heard. And I think we've heard clearly that there are people in our court who have felt unable to get to a microphone because the thoughts aren't quite there yet. And one of the things I know that prevents people's thoughts from being formulated is other noise, other talking going on. So I really want to encourage all of us to allow space and time. And now I'll invite microphone 1.
Reed, Bay of Quinte Conference. I've served 3 times on the Business Committee of General Counsel, and I can't tell you how we will transform our business practices, but I speak in favor of this motion because it invites us into a mindfulness as we do our work. I am white, I am male, I'm 6 foot and a bit, I'm 200 pounds and a bit, and I have privilege. And I need to be reminded I have privilege. I am very much overjoyed that we have agreed to having an equity monitor because I have learned so much from our equity monitor working in our presbytery and in our conference. And I think that this is one of those things where an equity monitor will help us greatly in our transformation, reminding us when we move too fast because we know the way. I support this proposal because it brings us into that time of mindfulness, and we need that.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Nick Phillips, Maritime Conference, similar size and shape to Paul. I want to thank my brother Paul for bringing this up, that we sometimes gloss over these little, well, not little at all, the minorities, the marginalized. I'm struggling with words, but I think you know what I mean. Structures be damned, remits be damned. We are right now being called to be the church, to follow a Savior who walked with the marginalized, and to reach out and welcome them and bring us into one body. This is the church. This is what we are called to do and be in the world. And I thank you for this time for us to realize this and to work towards the reconciliation that we've expressed so strongly this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Bob Fillier, BC Conference. I've spent this General Council sitting with our ecumenical partners and guests. If I heard Paul correctly, this needs to be adjusted. The lens needs to become even more focused and stronger. I think this is friendly. That the 43rd General Council seek forgiveness from our racialized siblings in Christ for the racism they have experienced. And furthermore, commit ourselves to transforming our business practices and procedures for the remaining of this meeting, and from this point forward, to end that experience in our church.
The movers and seconders, you're proposing that, I think, as a friendly amendment? Is that received as a friendly amendment? Sorry, point of order, Mike, please.
Penny Nelson, Maritime Conference. So I am still concerned that those of us who are white are the ones who are formatting this motion. And on the one hand, I'm really torn because I know that I need to do my own work on my racism before, so that I can stop doing damage to others, and that it isn't fair of me to ask others to do the work for me. And yet, on the other hand, I also actually don't know what would be helpful, and there are so many different people to ask. So I know that this is complicated, but I agree with Nick. This is Christ's work, and it is important. And so I don't know the way forward, except I also still see Hannah at the microphone, and I don't know if you wanted to speak to that or not, or other folks in this room. But maybe we could just ask the white people to shut up for now.
Which was the gist of what I was about to invite us to, with maybe different words. But that was the spirit and intent, I confess. I'm going to actually invite those of us who are white to step away from the microphone, well away, like we're not speaking on this one. At least not right now. And it is a huge ask, and it may be an inappropriate ask, and if so, I trust our relatives will tell me so. But I'm going to ask that I'm going to ask our racialized relatives if you would help us as a church find a way forward that feels like the right way forward. So microphone 3, and then 1, and microphone 3.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to offer what I wrote on my Facebook. I do write down some reflections on my Facebook, so I will take time to read it because it's short, and then I would like to make amendment or add amendment. Is it fine?
And I'm going to suggest we don't need to be doing this proposal amendment. We just need to work this one out.
Okay, so I would like to then offer suggestion right away. Okay, so my general observation of General Council 43 after the decision session this morning was this: we, General Council 43, as a collective body, don't seem to have confidence and knowledge about how we understand and deal with the concerns centering racism, white privilege, and settler privileges. I sense the continuing and prevailing persistence of discomfort, uncertainty, and resistance, even to hear some words, especially if these discussions show implications toward implementation. Not to mention racism, white privilege is not integrated through the themes, proposals, and the whole communal discussion and decision process as fully as it should be. It feels like this particular term, white privilege, is generally avoided. If so, how can we move towards reconciliation in intercultural church? Some of us might understand the technical definition of white privilege, but might not know how it works and how it becomes a real roadblock for the entire church to become one journey church of multiple paths, to be intercultural with the indigenous church, guiding us and grounding us with the work of the Spirit. White privilege is the giant elephant we don't really actually talk or discuss about. We are not ready. We have not reached that point as the church. I am sorry for the indigenous church. I am sorry for us. So the suggestion I would like to offer is integrating the theme of white privilege in the, in this communal discussion process, and implement a study on white privilege. I don't know, some kind of working on white privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Hallie Johnson, London Conference. As a person of color in the church, I've grown up my entire life being a minority, and I would just like to speak on the fact that encouraging diversity and apologizing for potentially racist past that we have had is done by not only encouraging more people of color to be involved in our spaces, but really recognizing the diversity and difference of opinion and difference of experiences, as well as lack of privilege that they bring to the table. And if we do that, it works towards making sure that our spaces are more diverse and that our people of color are feeling heard versus just tokenized. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Hi, Maya Brathwaite from Toronto Conference. Can I just see the... Okay, so I'm taking this as this is a sort of an apology? Is it a... I'm just trying to clarify. Because if people are apologizing to me, I'm not the person who actually formats that apology. So I understand that you want to hear the voices of people who are racialized, but I don't see this as actually authentic and genuine. And yet, offering your voice and amending and perfecting also does not seem genuine. I think that it should be something that is said simply and then is found a way to be lived out. Very much so, even if you apologize and you make the most beautiful and wonderful proposal up there, it's going to take the work of the church over many, many years. So, lending my voice to this, I am offended, actually, that you would finally want my input in this particular business.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
If we're going to start, we should Sadiki Little Forbes, the London Conference. If we are going to start, we should start at the beginning, that the 43rd General Council seek to apologize to our racialized siblings in Christ, and furthermore commit to transform our gatherings, including business practices and procedures, for the remainder of this meeting and from this point forward, to reflect the diversity of our church. My experience in this church is not all bad, but the bad is bad. In this gathering, I understand that someone complained about black clergy gathering together. Other people gather together, but there is no complaint. Now, if I were to go into my psychology hat, I would say that endemic is always a discomfort whenever racialized people gather. And that might be a subconscious issue that we might need to reflect upon. The other thing I would like to help us to appreciate is the institutionalized racism that exists in Canada is so deep and saturated in the system that it is that the level of oppressiveness is intense beyond having it in your face. It is like having a wall that you cannot see, go around, go over, go under, but you can't see the wall because you don't know where exactly the issue is. And I want to share something personal. As we talked with our friends about how my husband gets a job in Canada as an educated black male with many degrees, we are inclined to think his name is Imran George Forbes. And he was invited to an interview, and when he arrived, the gentleman said, "I thought you were Syrian," and that is by his first name. So should he change his name to I, George Forbes, for a better chance? But in this church, in this gathering, I have been asked where I was born. Never have I ever had a conversation with a human being in any part of any world, and I have traveled the world, where I have a conversation with someone and ask them where they're born. Never. I have a conversation with you, and in our chit-chatting you say, when I was on the farm in Alberta, and I go, oh, okay, they're from Alberta. And then it occurred to me that this issue of privilege is really an issue of laziness or the lack of mindfulness. Think before we speak. It's that easy. But sometimes we are so lazy to do it because we're in that cushion of privilege. So I would like to edit that proposal to begin first with an apology, because reconciliation is a process that begins with an apology and moves to forgiveness. And forgiveness in and of itself is also a process. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Moderator Jordan and then General Secretary. My name is Yunok Shin. I came from Alberta Northwest Conference. First of all, I really thank you, everybody. Fully support, approved our motion this afternoon. I say, yes, amen. I like to share that just one thing. I thought that we have no racism and white privilege in the church until I came to work in the city. I have been serving many congregations before I serve the intercultural ministry, that rural congregation is more accept and understand, and so I thought that I have a wonderful experience in my personal ministry, and then I have been privileged to serve intercultural ministry full-time, paid accountable Edmonton Presbytery by many volunteer of Caucasian leaders and many migrant and immigrant friends and church members, so that we have been developed many good programs and network and community of faith. So my experience that many people who do something, look down the migrant or immigrant or people who have colored and unaware. So United Church has been promised and still promising that we are fully becoming intercultural. That means we have to work hard, intentional and missional as a church fully becoming intercultural. So I really like to support that. I don't know about the forgiveness, but let's do work. And we appreciate that we have been doing already, and also we fully opening ourselves. Let's do the more work to do. So that I really personally thanked and appreciate that we as a United Church opening and still opening and wider opening. That's the I like to celebrate that. Yet we have many challenges. I know that. So we work together in team. And then intentionally, we just practice that as Paul Wolfer suggests that we have to work intentionally every corner of the meetings and work. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Oh, ito sa miskat na. Kido aga manti. Imanti na utan mutagat siga kaya soche. First of all, I will greet you, the visitors that came here to our island. Kigipitan na kigiskit the maunyo. Minagite maunyo. You have brought your knowledge and your religion. Magamagot kawitsiminan makikita tapueta ya oga pamamis kumay. Napiu. Jesus Christ kasi diosot. When you came, you didn't ask us if we believe in the man you call Jesus Christ. No sem yiski the man ani tatu matio. Ukimagi si diosot. Briefly, we knew who the Creator was. We call him the Chief. Muli doge maagaan kahit kaapmik, higiska migonastuk. I'm not referring to a chief that wears a war bonnet, a feathered hat. Tanti minito ayo chimaga. I don't know where that came from. A scout. Kinawa Peace Week, in Peace White Utah, General Council. Sometimes when you speak to this General Council, it looks like as if you are in fear. And so now, on top of what you're stressing, I'm not a top boy. You're in fear of the truth. Kahit white to kite the manu, kahit you used to make a top boy. All of us are in fear of the truth. Mula po ginawa kaman TV. Kasi lahat ay tinit na ganito yung mistusyo. I'm only referring this expression that I made to you who came here. and to you that we call people of the wooden boot. That's a brief translation of who the first visitors came to North America. North America. Kaya ba namatkin tuninaw, kaya kutista na tamis kami umuti kawiti kimun. Kahilagat naman, nistagat swan. All of us still seek to find a response to the question. Apuiti itinao, kiwado agaita. Maybe you think, what does he mean? Tapu na naman. Kiwan tapu. The truth. And the question is, what is truth? Iwi kawiti mo pilot. Matis konos kosigajet. That's the question Pilate was asking. What is truth? Nobody has given the answer to that. We are still trying to find an answer for that question. Ako mga mi puni tamagi. Institute no ang puni tamagi. And the wording that you wrote on the chart there, it talks about the term you call forgiveness in your language. Puni tamagi is in my language. Do you understand that? Inayam mihaya. Kita pati hitana ni kuwitsihimunga. Intuttamaham. Kawitsihimun. Puni tamagi. In our prayers, kahilagayot na magumayamihan. All of us that are taking this prayer, we use the word forgiveness. Forgive us our trespasses, all of us say that part of the prayer, forgive us our trespasses. Abo na mga po ni dito mo eh. Kailangan siya po ni dito maswa, apo gitawa po ni dito matu. And that wording, forgive us our trespasses. Am I forgiving you or am I forgiving myself? Sis, kititaw na ako, kaya ba't iustin ako, tapu. So I'm telling you, you're still in fear of the truth. Yes, all of us still cannot find the answer for that question, what is truth? Ego siya. Kinanas komit na ikaw na higayamihan. Wais kitutinaw. I thank you for listening me to speak, that you're not interrupting me, because it's offensive to interrupt elders that speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Thank you, moderator. Lynetta Reed James, Toronto Conference. I have been thinking that for a number of years, we have been trying to live into an intercultural church. However, I believe that the church is still stuck at multicultural, where, yes, we accept the different cultures, and we are satisfied with appointing a token person to committees, etc., but we have not embraced the cultures. And so that's what I would like to ask that we do intentionally. And I'm hoping that there'll come a time within my lifetime and my participatory time in General Council that will truly be united. I'd also like to ask that as we look at this, please don't vote for it unless you mean it. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, moderator.
Jingle Ayupan, Southwest Presbytery. I would like to shift the wave a little bit. I would just like to share my experience with the United Church. I came to Canada in 2002, and I was received and welcomed by the United Church in Toronto. My experience with them is very warm and I felt very loved there. So having said that, I found a spiritual home in that home church, and there is love. I don't know the meaning of racism when I came to Canada, because I came here with a strong belief that I am the apple of God's eye. And so up to this present time, I embrace and love my two amalgamated churches. And so I really would like to thank United Church of Canada for having me and bless me to be with this wonderful church. And I believe we are the church. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Well, y'all know me. I hear about the churches closing. I opened up one. I opened it up because I had two people in front of me that were role models. Most of y'all know who Peggy Manague was. She walked with the Bible for 30 years within this church. I know her grandparents, her mom, were devoted to this church. Peggy's husband was a traditional man. These two walked together for 30 years until she passed a couple of years ago. She asked me if I would do the fellowship. I didn't know what the fellowship was. I wasn't a churchgoer. But I did it for her because I figured this was going to be her last time in the church, playing the organ and doing maybe a little preaching. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then as the story goes, well, we have the church open. We have every Sunday service. We've done an awful lot in a year and a half. And my philosophy is united means everybody and everything. I have a small group of women that have only joined me to help rebuild this church because of that philosophy, that united means everybody and everything. We have the native spirituality in the church. Our medicines are up at the table. We start every service with a smudge and offering of the tobacco. And we end it in going into the hall and sharing in the circle with the feather. We have equal members, and I counted this. We have equal members in our little congregation. Equal number of whites and equal number of natives. And they just mesh beautifully. And we've got an Italian now that's coming. And this is what it's going to be. When I came here, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I said, sure, I'll do this. Sure, I'll do that. But then I started really listening. And I was going, why? Why is everything so complicated? Everything's by the word. People have lost their spirit. Spirit should come first in any kind of decision. But everybody, that one day, we spent 1 hour, I counted this, 1 hour on one word. And I was going, oh my God, we have 81 things we gotta pass, and we're caught for 1 hour on one word. How long is this going to be? No wonder the church is moving so slow. And if it's moving that slow, imagine what it's like for us, the lost voices that now have the courage to stand here before it and actually have people listen to our voices. For me, it's quite the honor that I'm representing the All Native Circle. Will I go back and say what I've been able to do? Sure. And I know people are really anticipating what I'm going to bring back from here. And I'd like to say what I said to Richard when he was voted in, when we were hugging. I asked him to bring balance. We got to bring balance. That's looking at all the four directions and bringing them together with the people with the disabilities as well. And the children. The children are our future. And I'm so happy that we've had some marvelous voices step forward from the youth. So that's all I gotta say. It's just bring balance and don't forget spirit. Spirit over words. Miigwech.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Anyway, this horse walks into the general count 43. Moderator asks, why the long face? So, you know, I stand here united, right? United in humor, united in, as one people, I guess. I'm looking up at seeking forgiveness again. I don't think we're going to be united in seeking forgiveness. I thought we were way past that. You know, we need to activate that true reconciliation. It's out there. We just need to pick it up and leave it on the table. We just can't put it back into the closet. What is reconciliation? You're looking at a person who they approached the first time. Russ, do you want to reconcile? I have nothing to reconcile about. You know, I'm so tired of playing that victim, standing here at this mic, and looking at this again, seeking forgiveness. I hear my black sisters, my black brothers, my yellow brothers, and you know, it's sad, it hurts. And I think you know, in 1977, I married the United Church. Well, I shouldn't say I married Mrs. Byrne in the United Church of Canada, right? You know, I felt safe. But it's not that kind of a safe. The safe that I felt is like going in and you have to get all these numbers to get me out. That's not safe. And you know, it's sad that we're standing here seeking forgiveness. Come on, man. It's not right. You know, we had this comprehensive stuff going on, right? We brought everything to the table. And it was 9 months into progress, and we didn't have one of us at the table. It was a difficult journey. You know, I sat with a few elders, late Jim White and Ray Jones, and I said, what are we going to do? They said, let's go get some firewood. We'll let you know. So I went and got firewood, and they locked me out. So I guess I volunteered that way. But you know, sitting there with young Kenji here and our past moderator, you know, I felt that safe, you know. I felt that safety again. You know, maybe they're going to get it right this time. But then again, seeking forgiveness. I just ran out of words here. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Yo. Hitmas, Jim, Nelson, Umax Doreen, Umax Jordan, Nora, Gucloud. Carmen Lansdowne, I'm a corresponding member from the facilitation team, and I've asked my friend and brother Michael to stand with me because despite the fact that I have had a lot of privilege to have my voice heard in this space, it was to do a task and not to share who I am, and that is terrifying. And with Russell, this is your work as the dominant church to do. I have grown up in a church where my mother sat next to Alberta Billy and with an F word attached said they owe us an apology, and then Alberta Billy said you owe us an apology without the F word. With a mother who was fierce and passionate and carried her grandfather's spirit, which brought us into the Methodist Church because our culture didn't previously have a concept of forgiveness, and they saw a way out of our traditional wars with the Haida and the Coast Salish, and whose heart was broken during the Great War when Canadians were conscripted and volunteered to go fight evil in Europe. And he said, why are you white people so crazy? You have the answer in your book. That's why we took your book. My people were Christian before residential schools. And in part because the missionaries had the medicine to save us from the smallpox epidemic that wiped out over 98% of our people. And I have white skin privilege, in part because my dad is English settler, and in part because Haystach don't really have to have super dark skin because we live in a temperate rainforest. And I am so, I feel invisible, and I know I am not. I have economic privilege, I have white skin privilege, I am educated, I have my PhD and 2 master's degrees. But because of that, because I fit in with the dominant church, all of this other part of who I am gets erased. And I'm asked to serve on facilitation teams or represent us at the WCC because I can speak well, parce que je peux parler en français, porque yo puedo hablar en español, porque mi esposo es guatemalteco. I can't speak Haystach other than to honor chiefs and highwomen and people when I start and to say Walaskayasacha when I finish. And despite all of this educational and economic and white skin privilege that I have, on my internship, someone in my book club said to me, when we were discussing the issue of what white skin privilege was and how people from marginalized communities can pass for white, somebody said to me, until you show up to church in a buckskin dress with a feather in your hair, you'll always be a little white girl to me. I was in candidate supply. I was the minister in that congregation. And my people don't wear buckskin dresses, by the way. I have had so many people in this church that I love come to me and say, you're so amazing. If they find out that I'm Heistach, you're so amazing that you've been able to sort of lift yourself up out of, that you don't have to have this experience of Native life in Canada. And I'll share it here. I preached it at BC Conference last year. I am a victim of childhood sexual assault. I am an intergenerational survivor of residential school. My biological grandparents went to residential school. I am a recovering alcoholic. My older brother committed suicide. My mother's a 60s scoop survivor whose United Church minister and minister's wife parents refused their entire relationship with her to read the Indian Act when that was the only thing she ever asked them to do to understand why she was upset about institutionalized racism in the church. Our stories are not visible because you don't ask for them. You ask us to come here and to participate with you in what already is. And it is your work. It is your work as the dominant church to change, to understand that somebody like Colin could have something prophetic and beautiful to say to the church, and that there's the possibility his being moderator wouldn't only just be about ableism and disability. And how I know that was the reason he didn't make it to the second ballot is because all week people would come and say to him, beautiful job with what you said. I love the words that Jared read. But nobody sat down and learned how to have a conversation with him or asked him about that. We have so much work to do. And we passed all of the social justice proposals today with no discussion, as if, oh, well, of course that's who we are. It is not who we are, because we have people in this room who are hurting and broken because of how we are treating each other in this room. It's not out there. And I don't give two wits about a new proposal. I don't want to force anybody to ask for an apology, and I don't know what forgiveness looks like. I know that there are people in this room that I trust. I know there are people in this room who can lead you in looking at issues of economic and white privilege, like Jennifer, like Steve Heinrichs in the Mennonite Church. When you're wanting to look at the TRC, you're looking to the Indigenous Church for answers. Look to people who are already doing reconciliation from a perspective of dismantling their own white privilege. Those are your leaders. And we will walk with you, and we will help you find them because we know who they are, because they are safe. Anyway, I don't want to take up more time. I feel like all I did today is talk, but I love this church, and I am here because I love this church, because this church has been my home. This church saved me. I came back to church when I was 6 days sober 18 years ago. And when my whole body relaxed that first day, on the first Sunday of Advent in 2000, and I can be a minister now. My minister at the time did not tell me I was crazy. As a 6-day sober, somebody who hadn't been to church in a decade, she said, maybe you've been avoiding that call. Let's have a conversation about that. So I am here and I am with you, but I am grateful for this conversation. I am grateful to you, Penny, for raising this, because we sit here and we hurt, and it's almost so, like my sister said, it's like this wall that is just around you, and you can't, you don't see it, and you just learn to accept it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what to do, but, well, it's Gayasacha.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Dong Chun-so from Toronto Conference. Through the last 6 days, and even particularly tonight, I feel Holy Spirit moving in this place. Not only moving, but also Spirit touches each one of us and tries to open our hearts to listen to others, the pain and suffering. We say seeking forgiveness. Before seeking forgiveness, we must hear those wounded, hurt, listen to them, hearing them. Without hearing and listening, there's no way to seek forgiveness. So I'd like to suggest this court, and from now on, regional court and denominational court, to have some plan. How can we listen to those who got hurt and suffering, whom we create agony or suffering and wound? I think that's the important thing, to listen. Even in this court, in this place, there are many who are behind, behind the curtain, not known, invisible, not able to speak up, feeling they are at the corner, are marginalized, even in this place. So I want to encourage all sisters and brothers in this court and those planning this kind of meeting, please let's open our eyes and ears to listen to them and to find them, who they are, and encourage them to speak their suffering and their journey. Without this process, seeking forgiveness is not complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you to the court. I find it extremely difficult to be a victim. I found it very difficult to understand what it is to be marginalized, because I grew up and worked for 20 years before coming to this country in a place where my color was the dominant, and not just dominant, but persons who were in charge. So I don't know if you understand that when I come into a space, I don't understand what it is to not be recognized as a person. So I never owned it when I first came to Canada. But I came and I went to northwestern Alberta. And there are not so many of us in northwestern Alberta. And you heard reference made to, by the Intercultural Observer, to the minister who was told we're not comfortable with hiring a minister, but then right after hired a female minister, but right after hired a white female minister. I was the minister who was told that. And that was my first introduction to, maybe you're not so hot after all. You need to come down a peg or two. And then I moved from that province, I moved to another conference totally, and had a completely different encounter with racism, which I won't go into here. But that also took me down another 3 or 4 pegs, because I don't remember my friend's name, the first person who spoke, who said he was 200 pounds, male, white, all the rest of it. That became a reality for me, because I'm female, I'm not exactly young, I'm black, and all of that in the face of what I encountered made it very real. I was not in my own space, and I was not counted as a person. And you know what? It was interesting to find where the support came from. How many of my white colleagues emailed, called, made a Facebook comment, anything about that situation? And because I'm not accustomed to being a victim, I spoke out about it. So it's not that it wasn't known. And I will say to you what I said to my table group in another discussion. Yes, it is you who have to stand in support of and speak out on behalf of those of us who are, for one reason or the other, marginalized or hurting. Nobody's going to listen to us because we do not have the power. You do. So I have to stand here and literally beg for your support. I'm going to be a politician here. And ask for your support in not just forgiving yourselves and offering an apology to those of us, but intentionally making that space. So we've already pushed aside the proposal that would have made this a reality with the intercultural intentionality at various levels of the church. And I'm going to be stirring up a little bit of something here. When I say just look at the ministerial component in the places of the church, the geographical areas of the church where they are most culturally diverse. Who are the ministers in Toronto? Not us. But what is the population demographic of Toronto? Who are the ministers in Nova Scotia, where there's a historical strong black community? I don't know the whole history of Canada. You all know it, right? Yeah, good. So you know what the historical community is there, but what's the composition of the ministry there? And that speaks to, for me, I might be wrong, and I'm wrong a lot of times, but it speaks to, for me, what happens intrinsically in our system. So while we have a wonderful proposal up there, and I thank you, Daniel, for raising that, I challenge us to go as far as the proposal says, not just in our business model, but in our work as church, with one another here, with our human beings who we meet on a daily basis, and with our work at the various councils. When it really matters, what will you do with those who are just a little bit different from you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Merci, Madame la secrétaire générale, de nous avoir donné cette occasion.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, General Secretary, for giving us this opportunity.
Je vais encore parler en français parce que l'émotion est en train de monter. Mon anglais est parti.
I'm going to speak in French because when my emotion rises, my English goes.
Simplement parce que c'est la sixième langue que je parle.
It's the 6th language that I speak.
Je ne vais pas parler longtemps. Je vais simplement parler de ce qui est devant nous, de la motion qu'on doit prendre, de comment on doit décider, mais pas vraiment de mon expérience.
I want to speak about what's in front of us and how we should decide, and not really about my experience.
Mais le fait de le dire, c'est la conséquence de mon expérience, justement.
But what I'm going to say is the consequence of my experience, really.
J'ai été éduquée et élevée dans une famille où mon père me disait, « Maman, tu n'es pas une femme, mais tu es une personne à part entière. »
I was raised in a family where my father said, "You're not a woman, you are a person, a whole person."
Et c'est avec cette éducation-là, c'est cette éducation, je veux dire, qui a fait qu'il y a certaines choses, même depuis que je suis petite, je ne vois pas les choses, je ne vois pas les différences, je ne considère pas les insultes, je ne considère pas certaines choses comme des limites pour moi.
And it's because of that education that I didn't consider certain things as limits for me.
Madame la modératrice, Madame la secrétaire générale, si je n'avais pas cette éducation-là, je ne serais plus au sein de l'Église unie aujourd'hui. Ce n'est pas une menace, mais c'est simplement une contribution par rapport à ce que nous sommes en train de faire.
If I didn't have this education, I wouldn't be part of the United Church. It's a contribution to what I want to say. C'est pas exactement ça. C'était pas exactement ça.
OK. Parce que j'ai connu des choses difficiles, très difficiles. Et je suis sûre qu'il y a beaucoup de gens ici qui ont connu ce genre de racialisés, qui sont ici ou bien qui sont ailleurs, qui ont connu ce genre de choses. Et là, je ne me sens pas prête pour le partager. Je ne me sens vraiment pas prête pour le partager.
There have been many things in my life which hurt very much, and she is not ready to share those yet.
La motion est bonne. Il y a des choses qu'on doit faire pour l'arranger. Mais ce n'est pas vraiment le temps de le faire maintenant. Il faudra nous donner l'espace qu'il faut pour qu'on puisse le faire de telle sorte qu'on ne dise pas encore une fois, l'Église mère nous a ignorés.
The motion is good, but we need to be given space to consider that we're not saying one more time that Mother Church has ignored us.
On vous demande, à vous la cour, moi je vous demande, je vous dis ceci, quand vous n'avez pas encore vécu une expérience, c'est facile de dire, c'est rien ça. Mais quand vous avez vécu une expérience qui vous a réduit en miettes et que vous avez cherché les moyens pour vous relever et continuer, je pense qu'à ce moment-là, vous pensez autrement.
If you have not had an experience that reduced you to a crumb and you had to lift yourself up and become something else, then you can continue and raise yourself up until you can continue. If you have not had that experience, then it's easy to dismiss the experience. And until you have lived it, you don't really understand what it feels like.
Alors, je vous remercie pour votre écoute et votre attention.
Merci.
Thank you for listening.
Microphone 3.
Cheryl Jordan, speaker, All Native Circle Conference. I totally resisted coming to the microphone, but could not be silent. I sat to listen to my brothers and sisters for the past little while. Prior to this conversation beginning, Evan Smith brought me the ashes from the sacred fire. For us on the planning team, the sacred fire has been something that we struggled with from day one about planning general council and about not being able to find a place for it during our time together. So after many, 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 many conversations, we made a decision to have the fire in the morning, and some of the elders here from our conference and our moderator placed ashes in the fire that came from the last fire of All Native Circle and offered those ashes there. Today, when Evan brought the ashes to me to carry, I could not believe what they felt like. They're crunchy, they're big, it's not ashes. It's not ashes. It hasn't been burnt long enough. And I'm holding them as this conversation was going on and as we try with words to describe what we need to be a community together, and here I'm holding it. That's saying we're not there yet. That's not the ashes that we've burnt. We haven't burnt it long enough. We didn't attend to it. We did our best with what we had. But this symbol that landed in my hands just before this conversation was too big a symbol to not share with you. And so I sat with it, waiting and wondering how I'm going to tell you that it's arrived, the symbol has arrived. Maybe we don't need the words on the screen, because they're here. And as I was standing here waiting at microphone 3, I wondered what my last sentence will be. And I think my last sentence is that these are not mine to carry. So I will offer them to the middle of the table. And that's it. And if this symbolizes the work we have to do, then so be it. But I'm pretty sure that these are not mine to carry. Miigwech.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Merci, Madame la modératrice, de me passer la parole. Mais malheureusement, je ne pourrai pas parler en anglais parce que mon anglais n'est pas bon.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, to give me the floor, but I apologize for not being able to speak in English. My English is not good enough.
Je voudrais juste vous partager en quelques minutes mon expérience personnelle.
I would just like to share with you in a few minutes my personal experience.
Et si je me suis levé, c'est parce que je crois que tout n'est pas mauvais, mais qu'ensemble, nous pouvons bien construire les choses.
If I got up here, that's because I believe that not everything is bad, but that together we can construct something that is good.
Je suis arrivé au Canada il y a 5 ans, dans un programme de PhD. J'ai connu des pires discriminations et je me suis résolu de quitter ce pays.
I arrived in Canada 5 years ago in a doctorate program, and I have experienced the worst discrimination, so I was ready to leave the country.
Au moment où j'avais résolu de quitter le pays, quelqu'un qui était entré dans mon secret est allé à l'église et a fait partager ma souffrance à l'église. Je n'étais pas au courant.
At the moment when I had taken the decision to leave the country, somebody who knew about my situation went to the church and shared my situation with the people at the church without my knowledge.
Et j'étais à Montréal à 1h du matin. Il y a une femme, Ruth Atto, mais malheureusement, elle est décédée, qui m'a passé un coup de fil.
I was in Montreal at 1 o'clock in the morning when a lady has called me.
Et je crois, grâce à cette femme, je suis encore ici. Et j'ai beaucoup plus d'espoir. Parce qu'elle était vraie. Elle était vraie. Et malgré qu'elle est décédée, je reste parmi vous parce que je crois qu'au milieu de vous, il y a encore des gens qui sont bien habités par l'esprit et qui peuvent nous comprendre.
So it is because of her that I stayed, because she was true. And even though I'm missing my words. Elle est décédée. She has died. Yes, sorry. She has died now. I'm still in that spirit, and I know that there are many other people here among us who have that spirit of being authentic and true.
Dans le fond, nous avons besoin de nous connaître. Écoutez-nous et vous saurez qui nous sommes et quelle est la souffrance que nous avons et que nous portons chaque jour en nous.
So basically, we need to get to know each other. We need to listen to each other. Then if you listen to us, you will get to know us and you will hear the suffering that we carry every day.
C'est ma première fois de participer à un conseil général et je remercie toutes les personnes qui m'ont donné cette opportunité. Lorsque je suis entré ici le premier jour, j'ai écouté l'histoire du peuple des autochtones et j'ai demandé à les rencontrer.
This is my first General Council, and when I came here on the first day, I heard the story of the native people, and I was very touched and asked to be able to meet with them.
Pendant plus de 2 heures de temps, avec une délégation de 3 personnes, nous avons discuté. J'ai compris leurs souffrances. Et aujourd'hui, je dois également cheminer avec eux.
Over 2 hours, we shared with each other among 3 people, and I understood their suffering. And now, from today on, I have to walk with them.
Comme il est écrit dans notre credo, nous ne sommes pas seuls. Nous croyons que nous sommes avec vous et qu'ensemble, nous allons avancer. Merci.
As our creed is saying, we are not alone. Together, we can move forward. Thank you.
Merci. Merci. Microphone 3.
Kenji Marui, London Conference. I will acknowledge that many people here may have had a groan when they saw me stand up and come to the microphone with something to say, because it has been a long time in this process. Time-wise, I had hoped to be on the road by now, driving to Skylight Festival to be reunited with my family. But this is an important moment. This really is the work of the church now. And all I need to feel, all that I feel compelled to say right now is my challenge to all of us here about what is going to happen after this moment. How do we tell the story of what happened at General Council 43? And yes, we can talk about how we totally overran our allotted supper hour. Or we can, and talk about how we were inconvenienced. Or we can tell another story. I'm not going to thank the court for your patience. I'm not going to thank you for listening. I'm not going to thank you for your good grace. I'm not going to thank you for allowing me to share in this time, because I don't think that is something that should have been requested or asked, because I don't think it should be a special occasion for which we need to be thankful and appreciative for.
Thank you. And microphone 3, then microphone 2.
Rolanda Taylor, Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario. Been listening to everybody, and I was looking at the seeking forgiveness. And when you think of that, myself, and the experiences that I've had since I was a minister. I grew up in Montreal, Quebec. I have faced racism. I was settled in the West, Saskatchewan, and now Manitoba. And some of the experiences, or many experiences I've gone through, has been very racist, from applying for positions to the way how people speak to you at council and would not even take your suggestions, but say to you, do you think that's a bright idea? Other situations in which you feel so uncomfortable, but yet I persevere and will not allow myself to be victimized. And I would call people out on their actions. So when I see this, the forgiveness, and I do hear people even say, well, oh, forgive me for saying this and forgive me for saying that, that's just empty words. You have to have something in action. You have to have something that you can see visually, that you can hear from the touch, from just being with that person, the support that you feel. And sometimes you can receive that support without any words, and you know that person is valuing you as a person and that you're not ignored. And this was so important for me to come as a commissioner here at this 43rd General Council. And I was so excited actually coming because of change. And from what I was hearing from some of the discussion groups is that I did not see that change. And I found that the people, some of them just maybe do not realize their actions And some of it is also out of complete ignorance and do not care about other people's feelings. And that was brought through with some of the facilitators' reports. And the thing is that here we are, standing, racialized people, trying to voice out and share their stories. But is it going to be taken into consideration, or is it going to be when you go back home, oh, well, they spoke about this or they spoke about that, you know, they're always complaining. But the thing is that we are the leaders. Not of tomorrow, we are the leaders of today. We have over 300 commissioners here. We have global partners. There's nearly 500 people probably here today. What message are we going to take back to our pastoral charges, our communities, to show them that all of us are created in God's image? Every single one is valued as a human being, and we're not here just to say we're going to pass through a proposal, but we're here to make concrete decisions on how our actions are going to be relayed to the United Church of Canada and the world. So it's something to ponder. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
I think we all want to transform our church, and I think we're doing it right now. You can't actually legislate anti-racism, or what was the wording, transform our business, whatever that was in the motion. That's only a start. We have to feed ourselves and our brothers and sisters. What do they need? What are they lacking? They need to be heard. They're being heard now, today. We have to figure out ways to do that. It doesn't happen in a business meeting where you have to know Robert's Rules of Order and talk fast and be good and fluent in English. It doesn't happen in a space like that. It happens in a circle or around a table when you put diverse peoples together where they can actually share where they come from, their stories. Magic happens. Wonderful things happen, but you have to provide a space for that to happen. And if you want to be intentional about something, be intentional about that. Provide a space where people can share. I think you should bring more opportunities for healing into the church, healing spaces. Share ways of healing. We all need healing, whether we are the dominant group or not. Those of us who have experienced racism and inequality often have a subterranean layer of anger that you don't see and that we can't express, but we need healing from it. You could help us get that, and we will help you be resilient and wonderful and how to dance.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Good afternoon. My name is, my Indian name is As news go about rock woman who stands strong. I'm very emotional right now because we're coming to an end, and I've always loved coming to General Council meetings. Now I have to go home back to reality. And I just want to offer my thanks to the moderator, General Secretary, and also to the other secretary, Sue. They've been good to me over the years. I've been coming to General Council meetings for quite a while now. And I've met a lot of people, and a lot of them have become my real good friends. Over the years, we've bonded, and if it wasn't for General Council, I wouldn't have any friends out here in the East. But I just want to say I bring greetings from my people from back home. And they expect me to bring back some information from here. And with that, first of all, I always like to acknowledge the Creator for His goodness and His compassion for us. Like Lorna, I'm a survivor of residential schools. I've overcome it though. I've worked on myself over the years. And I was brought up traditionally. If it wasn't for my culture, I wouldn't be here. I come from a long line of medicine men and healers in my family. So with their teachings, I use the teachings. And one of the teachings I noticed on up there on the screen was forgiveness. And that's what I did after I went to residential school. I had to forgive to move forward. Otherwise, you can't move forward if you don't have forgiveness. And that's one of our greatest teachings in my culture. And maybe a lot of you know my cousin. His name is Wilton Littlechild. He fought for that reconciliation in United Nations. And he brought that back over here. And he told me, he said, anytime you speak, always remember that. You have to forgive people. I brought my book. I was gonna say all this in here, but it's all gone now. But anyways, I just wanna thank United Church for everything you've done for me in the past years. I grew up in a United Church. Ever since I was small, too, I used to go to church with my family, in a wagon and horses, to be exact. And I know I have people here that come from my community, too. And I'm from Alberta. I'm from Maskwacis, Alberta. And I'm a commissioner for this General Council. So I'd like to say thank you, and I'd like to say I'm happy to have met some new friends here. Hi, thank you.
Hi. Microphone 2.
Miigwech, it's been a long day. In my hand, I have some tobacco. I could go on and tell you many, many stories. Racism, my own people did that to me too, because I learned your ways. But I shan't go into that. Most of you know my story, but I'm up here to offer some tobacco. Along with our ashes, tobacco of hope, tobacco that we use to pray, to ask for forgiveness, to thank the Creator for joy, and to go on with our life. So at this time, please rise with me so I can say a prayer for all of us, and we will continue on with the proceedings of the day. Come, my friend, I need you. Please. Very good friends, all of you. You give me the support that I need to carry on. In your own way, acknowledge your Creator, your Lord, Jesus, whomever, the one. I shall take my glasses off and pray. Heavenly Father, Creator, Maker of heaven and earth and the universe, and all that there is therein, we give you thanks. We thank you for this day, and we thank you for all that you've given us. Lord, Creator, be with each and every one of us now as we go forward with our work. And we thank the many spiritual beings who shared their stories with us, who touched our hearts. You gave them the courage to come up. And Heavenly Father, be with us now. We humbly ask you for your strength, for your insight into each and every one of us. Bless us spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally all the days of our lives as we travel Mother Earth. Give us the strength and the courage and the wisdom to deal with the challenges that we face as we travel Mother Earth. And may we ever acknowledge you in thought, word, or deed. Lord Creator, be with us now. Watch over us. Give us that strength to love one another, to have hope for the future. And we humbly ask your blessings along the way. This we pray. Aye, amen and amen. Miigwech, miigwech.
To all who have honored us and challenged us and extended in doing that the hand of friendship and respect to us, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your challenge. Thank you for opening us up, showing us what it looks like to be the church together in a different way. We as a church have been given a gift. We need to Learn how to open that gift, receive it fully. We're not going to arrive there tonight or tomorrow. I invite us again into a time of silence so that these stories may make their way into our deepest selves. So moving forward, we might begin to be different. With gratitude for the profound gift we have been given this evening, with gratitude for the food that we are going to share together, I invite us to rise from this place, to return after supper for our closing motions, and then to go into worship. I'm being told we should do them now, but I think we need to let this soak in, and I'm loath to return to anything like parliamentary procedure before our bodies have been fed and our souls can continue to feed on this wisdom. So we will set up for worship. And if we have to do our closing motion from a pulpit, so be it. But I invite us to move to supper and to be back here. Oh, sorry, I recognize.
Point of order?
Yep.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, absolutely. Friends, we're not adjourned.
I want to R-E-S. I want to respond to what my sister, who I love so much, said. And first, I want to say that R.I.C. Richard will be a gift to this church, and I will happily STAR start PRE preparing for CLA classes on Tuesday. I love my students, and that is my call. Now with that said, I want to tell you this about the SUND Sunday. I knew I was called to stand for moderator. A friend to a friend to many in this church, or in this court, was called to a D, I, different, D, E, N, denomination. So, I, W, E, I went to the S, the service, where he was being called, and it could have been so easy, so very easy for me to to find, no, to to follow him, but I sat there and cried because this is so my my home. I am a child who chose, no, chooses to to live into the 86 apology, and I am a child who would not be here without 888 it and it is who I am. But N E L S Nelson you your so are you're so right. We S C A we're scared. And all week I saw it. I saw a S C A scared. You and you were not able to get past this or get past that that fear to even S sit me down. Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, this is holy ground we walk on. May we tread lightly and with respect. I am aware that there are those in the court who need to eat because they have medical conditions. And I invite us to let them go first to supper and then to follow.